you're not an implementer anymore. Like you were an implementer. You were
Yeah.
so I'm going to make a statement and tell me if it's true or not. But my guesstimate is that you were at a few $1 million a year or under $1 million a year for many years. And during those years, you were probably an implementer where you were like, this shit has to be done. Let me fucking do this shit. I think without knowing it, you took a step back and you started to think more like a CEO than as a than as a business owner, a regular business owner.
Yeah.
That thought process takes you away from being an implementer and turns you into
by implementer, sorry to interrupt. Do you mean customer service rep? Because that's what I did it all.
I've got my hat on for customer service. Let me take that shit off. Now I got my pay-per-click hat on. Wait, let me take that shit off. Now I got my everything. It's freaking
totally. Oh yeah, dude. So much. But you're so right. Yeah, absolutely. It's if you think in that mindset, and if you're like, I need to do it all, and you're whether it's a control thing or whether it's a resources thing, or you just don't know what to, you're just going to stay flatlined, in your growth. And it's not even fair to call it growth. You'll just have something that might work, and then it'll just either fade away or continue to just exist in that linear state. I think that unless you are embracing the knowledge required to run a company, which I did not have at the start of this outfit. I was a cop, as you know, running a tactical unit. I didn't think about having, it's very interesting because that's the public sector mindset. They only have to deal with, their money is given to them, and then they just have to be fiscally responsible. You would hope as a taxpayer, they're fiscally responsible in their spending. When you're responsible for getting that money and allocating its route through the various channels in your business, it's a big responsibility. And if you don't know how to build those systems to prop up that process and then the growth, you either need to read or surround yourself with smart people, which is what I do.
Okay, so that's a good thing to go into, because that's the secret, right? So you mentioned a couple of different things, and I'm sorry, I'm taking notes as we go by because I want to touch on some of the things you're saying. First, I don't know. Like you mentioned something about, I don't know if it's you don't know whether you shouldn't be an implementer or not, but you have to do everything yourself because you think you do it better. I'm a big believer that it's either ego or you don't know what you don't know yet. You don't know that you should be stepping away yet. You don't know that it's time. And there's a giant amount of fear that keeps you in that don't know area, because I fear that if I step back and I give some power away, shit's going to go down, like bad shit's going to go down. Sure. And as growth-minded people and folks who actually scale companies, they become very good at giving power to people, like giving more power away than holding on to it.
Well, that's the essence of leadership in some respect. I mean, it costs you nothing to lift other people up, when you can be vulnerable, when you can be open to collaboration, when you know that somebody else possesses your core competency and you can possesses a core competency that you do not, and you can bring them in and say, I don't understand that. Explain that to me. Going back to the example of running a team, let's say prior to running a business, I wasn't the best sniper on the team. I wasn't the best breacher. I wasn't the best shot. But even as the team leader, I would have all of those people around me to provide the best advice and guide, that mission to success. And that was what my core competency was building a team. Mm-hmm. And now in business, I find myself doing the very same thing. It's why am I going to try to learn everything? I'm not going to learn buying media. you kidding me? Like, I'm not going to learn how to write a plugin for WordPress. No, you're wasting your time. Guys that are still doing like, oh, I want to do my landing pages and things, like, come on, like, you're wasting valuable time. That stuff can get done in a split second, and you can be on to building, you know, that structure that's necessary for growth, right?
Yeah. And we both, we both know people who probably still build their own web pages, and they're doing great. By the way, I'm not laughing at this. So
Yeah.
I mean, I am. I did just laugh at it. I'm on camera. I can't lie about it. I did just laugh at it. I did not laugh in it. I laughed. Fuck it. So in the end,
You just want to push them, but and
yeah,
before I forget, I want to touch on something that you talked about as well, and it's the fear of it, because um, without question, people that I talk about business to, and I really get granular with the discussion, what it always falls back to is fear. You know,
yeah,
whether, you know, there's two kinds of fear. There's acute, where it's, holy fuck, I'm going to get eaten by this lion, or it's chronic, where you're always worried, always, is this going to be okay? And you never take that leap, you never take that step. And chronic fear and the ability to overcome that is what differentiates people, I believe, from maintaining their status quo in their life and living a life that has either an extremely high amount of regret, or looking back, where they're going to regret never having taken that chance. You know, when you have the ability and the processes to conquer that, be vulnerable, you know, all of these things that we're going to talk about in terms of growth, man, you've crossed a bridge that will lead you to unparalleled success, in my opinion.
yeah. What do you believe has been something that has given you, like, let's forget your military background, because
Sure.
I think that was trained in, and I'll explain to you what I mean in a second. And let's forget about the success. Let's go back prior to all that and
Yeah.
figure out what is it that gave you the confidence to kind of break through that, and to not have that fear. Like in my life, um, it was um, reading books initially, because I didn't have the money to work with anybody. But it was reading, and it was looking for a few things that I could implement into a company or my life to become more productive. And then when I had more money, it was aligning with a few people who had track records of doing shit that I wanted to do, and then picking their brains and achieving in a few months or a year what would have probably taken me and what was taking my friends 10 plus years to achieve. And
Yeah.
then it was, getting a board of directors together, people who just literally help to brainstorm on my companies to help me grow. So those were my stages. What are yours?
I'll have you here.
Yeah. Yeah. You cut
Oh,
out for a second.
yeah, sorry, we cut. So you were last discussing the part where you brought in your board of directors, who really guided you in terms of building a company. So to back right up to what I think was what gave me the confidence, there were a couple of things. One was I've grown up, and as long as I can remember, I've wanted to build something, build a business, invent something. You know, everybody has that, you know, who ends up in the entrepreneurial space to some degree, or running their own business, has that really deep desire to be autonomous
Yeah.
and to rely on themselves for their own success, because they have a deep belief that they are capable. So there are things along the way that might restrict that or change that belief. And for me, from the period of 19 until I was 42, 43, at 19, I had a daughter, and so that really directed my life in terms of wanting to provide and sort of putting those other desires to build a business and be out in the private sector, because I felt a deep need to provide for my family, and I felt the most secure way to do that was to serve, and that started with the military and then the police department for just over 20 years between the two of those. But always having that deep core point. I started reading, and then in 2005, 2006, I started studying online stuff, and getting around people who were doing these online sales, and just learning all the way up to, it still doesn't stop, but really that was the initial point. 2008, I started to follow coaching groups that were doing strictly online business, and we started to build YouTube channels and those kinds of things. Then really around 2014, where I went a little further in on a coaching group, a mastermind group, that was where it completely changed the trajectory of everything that I was doing, right up until now being part of Club 28. It always, you will see these sales letters, you'll see these pitches, and they'll be like, oh, it's an easy investment at 10K, and everybody's like, holy fucking shit, 10K. I have yet to do one of those things that is not 10x itself. And I don't say that to be a fucking sales page for anybody, because I don't give a shit, because there's a lot of fucking douches out there selling shit that doesn't 10x anything. If you do your background, if you do your research, ask questions, find the right fit for you, it always results in exponential growth. I don't care what anybody says. It's
yeah. But you know what? That's a tough thing to say, right? Because a lot of that is in you.
Yeah.
So, my argument would be, you could go to let's forget about Club 28, because
Sure.
what we do together is one-on-one. Like, there's nobody who even gets accepted into our advisory program unless I believe that they are action takers, right?
Yeah,
so
fair
forget
enough.
about this, but let's go back to masterminds, where like you could be sitting and you'd have a person on your right and a person on your left, and they're not action takers. They could be hearing the exact same thing. They could be networking with the exact same people, and they will leave thinking they lost money, and you will leave and you will 10x or more. Like that's a conservative statement for a lot of the tools and tactics that you pick up at masterminds.
Sure.
So it is in you. It is the traits that say, prior to going to this mastermind group, prior to going to this meeting, prior to going to this seminar, prior to having any meeting, whether it's with my team or with my advisors or with my mastermind group or with my partners, prior to go to any meeting, you literally write down what you want to get out of that. And so that's forefront of the real estate of your mind there. And you are, that's what you're focused on. The people who go there and they're sitting right next to you and they're like, yeah, I hope I get something out of this. They said I was going to get something out of this. They're literally looking for golden nuggets.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that chase shiny objects. They, oh, you know what? This might work and this might work, but you're going there with a strategy and a plan. And that's why you grow. And that's why, like I was saying before, for years you were growing a company as an implementer, but let's just put numbers to that. For years, you were in the 6 or 7 figure range.
Yes.
And now you're mid 8s, right?
Yes.
You are growing, and you are, the conversations that we have are all growth conversations. None of these are, hey, Chris, can you diagnose this funnel? It's not that, we're talking about stuff that is outside the box and that literally compounds the organization that you're creating and allows it to grow.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like my focus, even, I'll try not to be too much of a tool to my team and get it and say, oh, fuck, I hate that button color, but occasionally I hate a button color and I can't help myself.
No matter what stage of growth you're at, we all need an unbiased review of what's working and also what might not be working anymore in our business. Because the greatest cause of stagnation in any company, the reason most companies hit plateaus in their growth, is because they fail to see the roadblocks that stop momentum in its tracks.